I'm sure you all have heard the name of Sir Isaac Newton, who discovered gravity while sitting under an apple tree. Newton was not just a scientist. He was also an author, mathematician, philosopher, theologian, historian, and astronomer. He made significant efforts to create the Philosopher's Stone and believed in black magic as well. Very few people know that Newton predicted that the world would end after the year 2060. It might surprise you to know that Newton had such an irritable nature that at the age of fewer than 10 years, he threatened to burn his mother and stepfather alive in their home. Even after nearly 300 years since Newton's death, the world knows very little about him. Many books have been written about Newton's life, but not all information is shared with the general public. We will share some parts of Newton's life that might make you think he was more like a psychopath than a philosopher. In the year 1643, just 4 days before the death of the great astronomer Galileo, on 4 January, a great scientist was born in England named Isaac Newton. His mother's name was Hannah Isaac Newton, and Newton's father had passed away even before his birth. Isaac Newton's parents got married in year 1642, but just 6 months after the marriage, his 70-year-old father passed away. At the time of his birth, Newton was quite weak. His mother took care of him for 3 years, but later she married a wealthy man named Barnabas Smith. Newton's responsibility now fell upon his grandparents. With the shadow of his parents gone, Newton started feeling quite lonely. He didn't enjoy playing with children his age and often felt irritable at a very young age. Newton began to suffer from depression in 1661. After completing high school, Newton went to Cambridge University for his graduation studies and got admitted to Trinity College. While he pursued his college studies, he was so eager to learn new things. In year 1666, when Newton was studying for his post-graduation, an epidemic disease named plague broke out in England. The disease spread rapidly, forcing all the university students to return home, and Newton also came back to his hometown. One day, he was sitting in the courtyard outside his house, when suddenly an apple fell on him from above. At that moment, he wondered why the apple fell down instead of going upward. Newton realized that there must be some force inside the earth that pulls everything downward, but there is no concrete evidence that the apple indeed fell on Newton. Many researchers have claimed that Newton observed the falling apple while standing on his balcony, and some people believe that the story of the falling apple was created later by a French author. According to some reports, Newton discovered gravity through a series of thoughtful experiments in his mind. Newton thought about what would happen if a cannonball was shot from a hill. He hypothesized that the cannonball would fall to the ground after traveling a certain distance. However, if more force was applied, it would travel further, and if the cannonball received a continuous force, it would not fall to the earth, but rather enter a constant orbit around it. But when the force stopped, the Earth's gravity would pull the ball back down. This is where Newton got the real idea of gravity. After the plague outbreak, Newton completed his post-graduation studies at Cambridge University. After this, Newton became a member of the Royal Society. This society included several great scientists from England, where he had an encounter with Robert Hooke. You might have heard of Robert Hooke in the field of biology. Until then, everyone believed that the white light coming from the sun was pure and could not be split into different colors. But in year 1671, Newton presented his experiments on the dispersion of light to the other members of the Royal Society. He explained that sunlight was not pure, but composed of a mixture of 7 colors, which could be observed during a rainbow. All scientists accepted Newton's explanation except for Robert Hooke, who refused to believe it. Robert Hooke considered himself the best and rejected Newton's claim. Newton became disappointed when Hooke denied his claim. After that, Newton left everything behind and returned home, where he started reading the Bible to console himself for several years. Newton continued reading the Bible, but he never believed everything written in it. He believed that many ambiguous things were written in the Bible to attract people to the Christian religion. Until 1680, Newton kept reading all the verses of the Bible. During this time, he also gained knowledge about black magic and astrology. It is also said that Newton wanted to create a philosopher's stone. Basically, it is a stone that can transform any metal into gold, and if the powder of this stone is consumed, it grants immortality forever. A great scientist believing such things is still hard to believe for many people. During this time, Newton conducted several research studies that he never presented to the world because he thought the world would not accept his experiments, just like in Robert Hooke's case. In 1680, a large asteroid passed near Earth for about 10 days and then moved towards the Sun, and a few months later, another asteroid was seen again. Everyone thought it was a different asteroid, but Newton said it was the same asteroid that had been observed a few months ago. In short, it had returned due to the gravitational pull of the Sun, but some peoples refused to believe in it. After that, for many years, he tried to mathematically prove gravity. In year 1687, in his book Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, he successfully demonstrated gravity with the help of mathematics, which revolutionized our understanding of the physical world, providing a mathematical framework for describing the motion of celestial bodies and objects on Earth. But on 31 March 1727, he died due to illness and bladder stones. Newton never got married in his lifetime, or it can also be said that he never paid attention to that aspect. Even after his death, several notes were discovered in a trunk at his home, which contains various calculations he had made, and on a piece of paper, he had written that the world would end after 2060. In 2003, the BBC revealed this information for the first time, which then spread worldwide. It is believed that Newton based his prediction of a world ending in 2060 on biblical references. However, some people believe that Newton said this to instill hope in people's hearts, stating that the world would not end before 2060, but the media sensationalized it. Newton's written notes were auctioned off later, and several books have been written based on them. He wrote over 4 million words in his lifetime. There is no doubt that as long as the world exists, Newton will always be counted among the greatest scientists in history.